Hi, it's Delia. Thanks for clicking on. So continuing with how to navigate these times, um, a little perspective helps. So in the 60s, when we were going through the civil rights movement, um, television was relatively new. It wasn't until sometime in the 50s that more and more families had TVs in their houses. So even in the 60s, it wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now, right? And back then, there were more guidances and restrictions on television and what it was supposed to do and how it was supposed to do it. So there was a lot more holding television accountable to the truth and there was such a thing as an unbiased news, and you could get it. Was it flawless? No, but it was a lot cleaner than it is now. And it was showing what was happening in Selma, on the Pettus Bridge, and everywhere else, what was happening in real time at dinner time, because it was a half an hour at dinner time, made a huge difference. Absolutely huge difference. What we have now going that qualifies as the news is a whole lot of things other than just straight talk about what's happening. Now we mostly get pre-digested news. We get news that's been filtered through other people's opinions. And some of them are really good, and some of them are not. So it's challenging because what we're getting for the most part is like pre-digested information. Granted, things are very complicated, and it's good to have credible professionals talk about things. I think of most good news these days, quality news, as shop talk, because I'm never going to be in the news industry. I'm never going to run for office. I'm never going to be elected to office. I don't want to be in office. So I don't need to be listening to 8, 10, 12 hours of news every day. That's just shop talk. Also, in the 60s, there were 3 stations. And then there came 2 other ones, but they weren't very big. And you could be exposed to an hour's worth of news a day in the evening. And usually that was a half an hour of local news and a half an hour of national news. So when you think about consuming the news today and you think about consuming the news in the 60s, it's really pretty much apples and stadium bleachers. They're just not in any way, shape, or form similar, except they both involve moving light on a screen. So the mandate in the 60s was to be aware of the news and to keep up with the news between the 3 stations and the newspapers, which were independently owned. And so they weren't a monolith of one point of view. And now things are not independently owned and things are monolithic points of view, most of which are subversive to democracy because they're pro-billionaire, they're pro-oligarchy, it's vested interest. So you want to keep up with the news, you want to know what's going on. What are the possibilities? And there are a number of possibilities that just may not be based in the US. The Guardian in England is really good. The Irish Times, I think, yeah, Irish Times. I've heard there's some good coverage out of India. There's Al Jazeera. There are places to find what's going on and not from inside the Kool-Aid factory where we live, right, in the US. And limiting your intake is imperative. um, consuming hours and hours of this stuff. It's so much of the news, and this has nothing to do with the people who are reporting. So much of the news is just vile. The facts of reprehensible and evil behavior uh, are considerable. Um, it's just such a tsunami of horribleness. And your stomach acid, your mental health going south, your dysregulation doesn't help. Your knowing things that you can do nothing about doesn't help the big picture. What does help the big picture is for you to live the way you want the world to be, because it ain't that right now, right? So if you are finding ways to cultivate community, if you're finding ways to um, donate peanut butter and jelly instead of just cash, or if your way of doing it is to donate cash, find the way that serves the bigger picture as well as you. It has to be a win-win. Um, do those things, right? So have a list of things that you can do on any given day. There's the business about making the 5 calls every day to the elected officials. There are marches, there are rallies. There's a ton of things available to us now, and more are being created all the time. And that's great. And find the 1 or 2 things that you can feel good about doing. And stop there. This is not this particular situation that we're in. This is not a situation where one person is going to um, hold the banner and win the day. This is not a, I mean, even George Washington needed everybody else, right? And we have to get out of the mindset of the oligarchy and colonialism that says that somebody's better than somebody else. We're all in this together. We may be in different size boats, but this is, whether you call it the war for the soul of the nation or the soul of the world or the soul of humanity, or whether you call it ascension or raising the vibration, um, whatever you call it, everybody has a part to play. And everybody needs to find the part that they can comfortably play that supports their, your vision and aspirations for what life can be like. Um, I always, I love to go back to Star Trek, because Star Trek was all about how humanity, social structures have to change. And for us to have a future, that's true. We can't do industry the way we've done it. We can't do energy the way we've been doing it. We can't do consumption the way we've been doing it. We can't do the economy the way it's been. And we certainly can't do community the way it's been. Um, there has been a lot of effort to dismantle community since World War II, because community was a big part of our winning World War II. And the last thing controllers want, controllers, patriarchs, oligarchs want, is for people to understand that they have the power. You have the power in a world that says you don't. So if you think the world could be more cooperative, find ways in your life. Nobody has to know about it. Nobody has to see it. But how can you be more cooperative? How can you be more community oriented in how you conduct your life? How you talk to the people you see every day, how you talk to the barista, how you talk to the person at the grocery store, whether or not you make eye contact with people. All of these things are so much more powerful and important than you're aware of, maybe. And how you live your life is more powerful. It plants seeds, it uh, nurtures, it grows, because possibility and empowerment is just as contagious as disempowerment and dissatisfaction. So, what is the world that you want to live in? And then start finding ways every day to live that. And if you have a voice in your head that says that what you do doesn't matter, um, I recommend you just go, maybe, maybe not. Maybe how I live does make a big difference. And maybe it just makes a big difference in my life. What if that's plenty? Because it is. So I was on a Facebook thing earlier, and there was kind of a argument, tension going on in the group, because they wanted more supervision. And this is it's a human evolution kind of a group. And I had to chuckle because um, the way the oligarchy and colonialism and all of that have been working is that we have to agree to be the little kids, and somebody else is the one in charge. And sooner or later, we have to be allowed to grow up, and that's like it's absolutely an inside job. When people have been oppressing you, you don't wait for them to give you permission. Eventually, you grow into I'm I'm the authority here. I don't need an external monitor. I can tell within me whether this is the most generative way for me to speak or act, or whether it is not. And especially on the internet, this is a great place to learn how to use your voice, how to contribute, how to be kind. Kind is not the same thing as nice. The kindest thing that would happen here in the immediate future would be that all people are held accountable for their actions, and the law is allowed to do its job. So lawbreakers, whether they're in office or um, stealing from the Circle K, would be dealt with in a fair and legal manner, and the law would be allowed to progress. So the kind thing for the world would be for the entire regime to be held accountable individually and serve the time that's warranted based on their crimes. So that's the difference between kindness and being nice. Being nice is damaging to everybody. Yeah, this is. So what can you do today that serves your vision of how humanity should be, how society should be, as well as living out the kind of cooperative life you perceive for the rest of us, for the community? Because a nation is nothing but a whole lot of community, and that's why we need a government, because a government's job is to protect and care for the citizens, the people that live in the community. And that demented Reagan idea that government should be run like a business means you have to break government, because it doesn't have the same foundation as a business. A business is designed to be a profit generation machine. Government is designed to protect and care for the people. At least that's the government we've had. for 250 years, and that's the one I think most of us want. So, what can you do today to be friendly, to be community oriented, whatever your values are, that's inclusive and, you know, full of hope for the future? We've had our future stolen by all the fear mongering and all the people saying there is no future, the future is bright. There is no future, the future is bright. And neither of those is true. So let's each of us create a better future for all of us. So, as always, I love to hear your comments or read your comments later in the comment section. And until next time, have a good day. Make it a good day.